I was squire to Sir Arlen of Pennytree.
He charged me to be a good knight,
To defend the weak and the innocent, and I swore that I would.
If you missed details like the layout of Ashford Meadow, Sir Arlen and Sir Stephen training with cloth-wrapped swords, or the puppeteers performing Florian the Fool and the Bear and the Maiden Fair in the promotional pictures, then this is the video for you. Today I'm breaking down 30 promotional pictures, uncovering hidden details you probably overlooked, and even correcting a few things I got wrong in my A Night of the Seven Kingdoms all trailer details you missed video. So stay tuned for that. Greetings Throne Watchers. Once again, I'll be discussing images in chronological order from the books. This video will only contain mild spoilers. If you'd like a completely non-spoiler version, let me know in the comments below. Since I've already covered the main story in my previous video, here I'll focus only on what we can see in these promotional photos. So, let's begin. In the first image, we see Duncan drawing his sword and testing its weight in his hand. I've already discussed this moment of Duncan taking out his sword beneath this tree in my previous video. He then places Longsword on Chestnut, who is carrying his luggage, takes the dirt road and rides Sweetfoot towards Ashford, leaving the tree behind. After this, Dunk arrives at an inn where he meets Egg. If we take a closer look at the sword here, you can see the wear and tear on the hilt of Sir Arlen's long sword. This is clearly a weapon that's seen a lot of use, which is fitting since Sir Arlen was a hedge knight who had served many different lords. We can also see this same long sword in the flashback scenes of Sir Arlen training Dunk as well as practicing on his own. I feel like we might even get to see how Sir Arlen picked up Dunk as his squire during these flashbacks, which I had discussed in my previous video. After this, Dunk leaves Egg behind at the inn, rejecting his request to take him on as his squire. In this image, there's something interesting at the top center of the frame. It almost looks like a camera to me. Do you think this is a production mistake, or could it be something else entirely? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Then Dunk arrives at Ashford Meadow. In my previous video, in the scene where Dunk leaves Egg on the bridge to go to Ashford Castle, remember how I had mentioned that the people were looking at something toward their right, and that I'll explain what they were looking at in this video? This image gives us the answer. If you look at the layout here, the bridge where Dunk leaves Egg is right in the middle of the frame. From that angle, what's to their right is the puppeteer's stall. This green arch is much clearer in this promotional picture, and it seems like they are performing Florian and Jonquil, which is Sansa's favorite in the books. And Sir Dontos had used this story, calling himself Florian and Sansa Jonquil, to gain her trust. But I'll discuss this image along with the other play later. Anyway, back to the promo picture. To the left of the bridge, you can see 3 orange tents. Each tent displays a different symbol: a sun, a crescent moon, and what looks like a star. Now here's where it gets interesting. House Charth uses a sun and a crescent moon, but their colors are blue and rose, not orange. House Martell uses orange and a sun, but they don't use moon or stars. And House Jane uses a falling star and a sword, but no sun or moon. So which house do these tents belong to? If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments below. Next to these tents, between the bridge and the tents themselves, you can also see the stables. It's possible Dunk leaves his horses here when he goes looking for an armorer, that is, Steely Pate, on his first day. And if you zoom in on the horses, you can see Sir Arlen's half helm, Dunk's wineskin, etc. strapped to Chestnut. However, Chestnut doesn't seem to be carrying the bags we saw earlier. Do you think Dunk moved the bags from Chestnut to Thunder, who is probably just out of the frame here? As I mentioned in my previous video, we know Dunk arrives at the Ashford Meadow with all 3 of his horses and stops in front of the Tourney grounds. In this image, we see Dunk walking through Ashford town. Beneath his longsword, there's something unusual, a horseshoe tied with a rope. So why is Dunk carrying a horseshoe here? Do you think he is using it to help support or balance his longsword? Or did he bring it to town to have it repaired or replaced? In the books, Dunk only uses a rope. There's no mention of a horseshoe. This feels like a deliberate visual change. What do you think the reason is? Let me know in the comments. Moving on to the next image, Dunk meets Steely Pate. He is looking directly at Dunk while holding a piece of chainmail on his table. Now the big question is, whose armor is this? Is it Dunk's new armor, or could it be Sir Arnold's old mail? Let me know which one you think it is. In the background, it looks like there is another knight sitting behind Steely Pate, sharpening his sword. After this, Dunk returns to the Elm Tree and finds Egg waiting for him. I've already discussed this scene in detail in my previous video. As I mentioned in that video, Egg has not only groomed Dunk's horses, he has also washed Dunk's clothes and hung them up to dry. You can see Dunk's half coat hanging beneath the elm tree. Dunk has put Sir Arlan's half helm, shield, and his saddlebags etc. beneath the tree, and it looks like he is in the middle of setting his longsword down there as well. All of this really makes you feel that the elm tree is Dunk's own personal pavilion. In the next image, we see Dunk sitting by Egg's campfire eating apples. You can see an apple and a knife in his hands and another apple wrapped in a cloth beside him. Behind the campfire, next to Egg, you can spot Dunk's new great helm, the longsword he was putting down earlier, and his bedroll. And far in the background, you can also see a banner flying, but it's too dark to figure out whose banner it is. Which house's banner do you think it is? Let me know in the comments. Next we see the promotional poster of Dunk and Egg beneath the elm tree. Dunk's shield with his new sigil is resting under the tree. Behind him, you can see the full layout of Ashford that we discussed earlier. It almost feels like they are leaving the elm tree to go to the meadow together. If you zoom in here, you can spot one of the two giant torches from the bridge behind this tent. To their right, you can see the puppeteers' stall, and directly in front of them, you can see the stables we talked about earlier in the layout image. All of this confirms that this poster is showing the same Ashford layout from a slightly different angle. Then we see Dunk and Egg inside a feasting tent. Egg is sitting on top of the table so he can be at Dunk's eye level. They are inside a yellow tent, which for a moment made me think this might be Lionel Baratheon's pavilion, since his pavilion is also yellow. But Dunk is drinking from the same cup we have already seen in multiple other promo pictures and trailers. That tells us they are at the same feasting tent in all of these shots. We can confirm that because the tables behind them are identical, and Egg is sitting on the table in the exact same way in the trailers. So my guess is that this feasting tent is yellow on one side and patterned with checks on the other. Next we see Plumber glaring at someone. In my previous video, I said that Plumber was reading letters, but in this promotional photo, we can clearly see that he is actually writing one. So that's a small but important correction. He might be corresponding with the people searching for the princess. Then we see Prince Aerion arrive at Ashford Castle and meeting Dunk, mistaking him for a stable boy. I've already discussed this moment from the trailers, but this promo picture gives us a different angle of this scene. You can see some men watching the procession, and behind Aerion, there are women giggling or outright swooning over him. And honestly, I can see why. Those Targaryen looks though. They really are the blood of old Valyria, huh? In the next promo picture, we see Sir Stephen Fossaway leaning against a wooden barrier and talking to someone. My guess is that this is the moment where he asks Dunk to spar with him after noticing Dunk watching their training. If you zoom in on Sir Stephen, you can spot apple tree leaves on his armor, an empty dagger sheath, and his sword wrapped with a cloth or leather for the training. So it looks like In A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, instead of using blunted swords, the knights may be training their squires with their actual weapons just wrapped in cloth or leather. What do you think they are using to cover the blade? A cloth or a leather? Let me know in the comments below. You can see Sir Arlan doing the same thing in this image, which strongly suggests we will get a flashback of Sir Arlan training Dunk. You can also tell that a lot of time has passed since that flashback. The paint on Sir Arlan's shield has started to wear off, but the shield Dunk carries in the present timeline has not only been repainted at some point, but even looks faded and old now. In my previous video, I talked about this scene where Sir Arlan appears to be practicing alone. His sword isn't wrapped here, which tells us he isn't training Dunk in this moment. I still believe that we will get a flashback of how Sir Arlan first found Dunk and took him on as his squire. So this scene may fall somewhere around that moment. Next we see Egg playing tug of war with House Ashford's men-at-arms. You can see the Ashford banner hanging from the rope, but based on the clips from behind the scenes trailer, which I'll be covering in my next video by the way, it seems like Dunk and Lionel will eventually join Egg's team and help him win. We even get a promotional image of Dunk and Egg celebrating their victory. You can also see House Ashford's men-at-arms celebrating alongside them. This could be where Dunk first truly bonds with Lionel Baratheon, and that would explain why Lionel later invites Dunk to his pavilion, where the two of them get thoroughly drunk. When I first discussed this scene in my previous video, I assumed it happened after the first day of the tourney, but now I think differently. Why, you ask? Because of Dunk's clothes. Let me explain. At this point, I think we can almost reconstruct the timeline just by looking at Dunk's clothing. Ever since Sir Arlan's death, Dunk has just been wearing a grey tunic. When he arrives at Ashford for the first time, he is only wearing a tunic and a cloak because his coat is dirty. Once Egg arrives, he washes Dunk's half coat and leaves it to dry overnight beneath the elm tree. The next day, when Dunk takes Egg with him on his second trip to Ashford and goes to enter his name in the lists, he is still wearing only his tunic and not the half coat, most likely because it still hasn't dried yet. But on the following day, aka his third trip into town, when the first day of the tourney begins, Dunk is finally wearing his half coat again. So yes, I really think we can tell which day it is just by what Dunk is wearing. In the next promotional photo, we see Dunk and Egg back at the same feasting tent they were in during the day, at least judging by the cups. But this time, it's clearly night. I think all of this happens on the same day. Dunk takes Egg with him to Ashford Meadow, speaks to Plumber and meets Prince Baelor Targaryen, aka on his second trip. Now, based on Dunk's clothing again, on his third day in Ashford, he finally gathers the courage to speak to Tansel. Before this, he has only been watching her from a distance, and this is when he would offer her a peach. Behind Tansel, you can clearly see a bear figure at the puppeteers stall, which strongly suggests they are performing the Bear and the Maiden Fair. You'll recognize this song from both Game of Thrones, where it's played multiple times, like when Locke and his men had captured Jaime and Brienne, or when they forced Brienne to fight a bear, etc.
The bear and the Maiden Fair.
And from House of the Dragon, where Lenore Velaryon and Carl Quarry sing it while they are drunk before they stumble upon Rhaenyra. And in the scene where Dunk offers Tansel the peach, behind her, you can see the puppets of a fool and someone else. That would make this fool Florian the Fool, meaning the play is Florian and Jonquil, which, as I mentioned earlier, is one of Sansa's favorites. I'll admit I'm a little bit sad that we won't get to hear another masterpiece from Ramin Djawadi, but I'm also really curious to see what Dan Romer does with it. In the next promo picture, we see Aerion, Lord Ashford, Prince Baelor and Prince Maekar, aka Maester Raymond's father, standing on the dais. Aerion looks furious, Lord Ashford looks annoyed, Prince Maekar looks upset. Only Prince Baelor is smiling and waving to the crowd. In my previous video, I assumed the woman behind Prince Maekar was the fair maid, aka Lord Ashford's daughter. It seems I was wrong, but doesn't it feel strange that she isn't clearly present here? After all, This tourney is being held to celebrate her 13th name day. Do you think she left because the first day of tourney was ending? Or was it because what Aerion did was simply too much for her? Next, we see Lord Manfred Dondarrion returning from the first day of jousting. As you can see here, he is standing on the same bridge where Dunk had left Egg with Chestnut earlier. You can even recognize one of the giant torches behind him. You can see these torches more clearly in the clip of Dunk and Egg. Lord Manfred is accompanied by 2 horses, including the one from the trailers who calls the Hedge Knights sad.
It's like a night, but sadder.
We're not sad.
Then we see Dunk returning from the tourney with Sir Raymond Fossaway. Once again, you can recognize the bridge and the 2 giant torches behind them. I think this is where Dunk will go to Raymond's pavilion, which I already discussed in my previous video. And we know this is the end of the first day because Dunk is wearing his half coat. After this, we move on to the day of the trial. First, we see Dunk and Thunder fully armored. Then we see Dunk moving forward with some people standing behind him. We know they are on Dunk's side because you can see the torches and gates behind Dunk. You can see these same gates and torches more clearly in this image. I think the figures behind Dunk are Lord Lionel Baratheon, who can be recognized by his yellow surcoat, and Sir Robin Risling, who seems to be an older knight with a white beard and one eye. You can almost make out the eye patch on his left eye. As I mentioned in my previous video, the jousting barriers have been removed, leaving only the shield statues with torches in them. In this promo picture, I think Dunk is heading to meet Lord Ashford to tell him he is 1 champion short, and that's when he asks the knights if there are no true knights among them. You can check out my previous video to see the full breakdown of the trial. We then see the 7 challengers on Dunk's side. I already discussed who they are in my previous video, but it seems like I got 2 of them wrong. After studying this promotional photo more closely, I realized I had mixed up Sir Robin Risling and Sir Raymond Fossaway. So the knight on the extreme left is Sir Robin, not Sir Raymond. He is clearly older and his shield appears to be black. Next to him is Sir Raymond Fossaway. His horse is wearing a bright new armor and you can make out his yellow shield with an apple sigil. It's hard to tell the color, but if you have read the books, you already know which color that apple is. Then we see Dunk donning his helm and getting ready for the trial to begin. Behind him, there are no knight statues. Remember this scene from my previous video? This promo pic confirms what we discussed earlier, that this gate is on Aerion's side with the main entrance and statues flanking it. If you are still watching this video, here is a bonus shot for you. This gives us our first proper look at the Kingsguard's armor, along with a closer look at the shield statues. I'll be breaking this down along with many other shots in my A Knight of the 7 Kingdoms behind the scenes trailer breakdown video, which I'll post soon. If you enjoyed watching this video, please hit the like button, share it and subscribe to the channel. Have a great day and 7 blessings to you.